Good evening and many thanks for joining us. This is Impact Kenya, your television show that gives you an opportunity to be heard and also hold our leaders accountable. My name is Jason Nyantino. Tonight on this program, we are focusing on the war against corruption. Why are we losing this war as far as this country is concerned? What is our scorecard? I've got a fantastic panel tonight that is going to unpack this subject by fielding questions from my audience members drawn from different counties. We have people coming in from Homa Bay County, Western Gishu County, Kitui County, Marsabit County, and many, many other counties. Welcome aboard. Let's get to know who is on the panel this evening. On my far left is Eric Theuri. Eric is the President, Law Society of Kenya, LSK. Is a corporate audit specialist and advocate of the High Court of Kenya with over 17 years experience. Eric champions for a firm stand against corruption in the judiciary, the executive, and parliament. Eric, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
Next in line is Sheila Masinde. Sheila is the executive director, Transparency International Kenya chapter. Sheila has 19 years work experience in anti-corruption, governance, media, and outreach. She is one of Kenya's most visible anti-corruption and integrity crusader. Sheila, welcome to the show. Next in line is George Collins Award. George is the Executive Director, Transform Empowerment for Action Initiative, an NGO that promotes democracy and good governance. He mainly works with youth, women, and marginalized groups, promoting democracy for sustainable development. George, welcome to the program. Last but not least is Philip Kagushia. Philip is the Deputy Director, Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, EACC, where he is in charge of asset recovery and civil litigation. Philip is an advocate of the High Court of Kenya with over 17 years experience. In 2017, Philip became the first lawyer in the history of Kenya to successfully prosecute cases on forfeiture of unexplained wealth. Philip, welcome to the program. Let's put our hands together for our panel tonight. Before we begin tonight's discussion, let's have a look at what Kenyans are saying about the war against corruption.
Sincerely speaking, hakuna gava poa, unaona, kwa sababu hakuna serikali poa, kila serikali iko na own benefit, una get.
It will depend on which government is going to take the win, the victory.
Itasaidia kwa sababu naona kama Matakarua sasa ni lawyer, yule ako na nguvu akiwa pale. Wale watu wako na pesa ya serikali wameiba mashamba, itarudia wenyewe.
If Azimio la Umoja is going to win, then I'm sure that the next government will combat corruption.
It depends on what they will do that hasn't been done. You know, the factor of corruption, it's a very big crisis.
Mimi naamini baba akiingia ataweza kufight corruption. Juu so far tukiangalia track record ya baba, kuna hatujaisikia hizi mambo mingi ati yo sijui baba kuna scandal.
I can't comment at this next government. When they step in power, they will just deal with it immediately. It will take some time, and it will have to take many leaders to agree, because you can't fight something that you are a part of.
Many thanks for those views. Our first question of the evening is from Sylvia Kemunto. Sylvia is from Nakuru County.
My question is, the Kenyan judicial system has been known to be a parking lot of corruption cases. What measures can be put in place to reduce the amount of time used in solving corruption cases in the Kenyan judicial system?
Thank you, Sylvia. Eric, judiciary and the fight against corruption. Your take.
I think that the product that goes to the court largely then defines how the court is going to deal with it. Because if we have competent investigations and charges that are presented before the court that have the weight of evidence, then the court would be able to do justice to those cases. But the experience we have had, especially the past few times, is that one, the investigations may not be as thorough, and two, that sometimes they are done in a way that eventually you impede justice. And why do I say this? You would find a charge of corruption where there are about 10 or 15 suspects in one case. So that means that each lawyer, each suspect is getting a lawyer to represent him. So assume that the witness, each advocate is taking 15 minutes, and there are 15 lawyers to cross-examine one witness. It basically tells you that by the time you deal with one witness, 1 week is down. If you have 20 witnesses, you see, and we are assuming that this court is dealing with only that one case, and it is doing so continuously. So there is a need to actually relook the manner in which we conduct investigations against corruption, and that when we take cases, it would be ideal that we take cases against those that you have watertight evidence and they bear the greatest responsibility.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sheila, I have seen allegations that judiciary is part of the problem. From your experience as an anti-corruption crusader, what do you have to say?
I think that those accusations have been made largely because of some of the challenges the LSK president has raised regarding the length of time it takes, and he has explained why sometimes some of those cases take an inordinate period of time. And largely when they're in court at the hearing and determination phase, because for us we have tried to analyze a number of corruption cases in the last 5 years, but going beyond the last 5 years, we found that it takes an average of 5 to 7 years for some of the really, more recently, 5 to 7 years for a case to be concluded. I know there are some which have been done in record time, under 2 years, like we had the case facing the MP for Sirisia. But largely, there have been concerns around time and to some extent whether when you're in charge of the hearing and determination process, whether there's a way in which you can intercede and cut back on the adjournments. Okay. Because in a sense, from the way we see it, lawyers are smart. And in my own experience, particularly following corruption cases touching on prominent people in this country, you'll find that they will take the longest time. So I think that maybe as the judicial, for the judges rather, and magistrates involved in corruption cases, it is just devising ways in which you're able to handle, some of these requests that come for adjournment and so on.
All right, let's get to hear from EACC itself. They're right on the panel. How is the war against corruption going? Is judiciary playing ball?
Yeah, thanks for that. I think part of the answer has been coming from my colleagues on the panel, including the fact that criminal justice is a chain. There's a process. It starts with the law enforcement agency, which conducts investigations. And allow me to mention to my learned friend that the investigations are thorough. That is why when they go to the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution, he concurs with EACC, for example. And the concurrence rate between EACC and the Office of the DPP is above 95%. So it means for every 100 investigations and out of every 100 recommendations, at least 95 get approval to charge people in court. And then the next link in that chain is the judiciary. Now let's talk about the judiciary. Since 2016, former Chief Justice William Mutunga was able to set up a dedicated anti-corruption division of the High Court, which is what has allowed us to file many recovery cases and restore assets to the public. So we have to understand that it is a chain. And allow me to mention this. If EACC is able to get 10 people charged in one case, it is evidence of thoroughness, because you cannot have flimsy evidence landing in court. Now, part of the problem is members of our own fraternity, members of our own law society, because if you understand 10 accused persons, some of them have 2 lawyers each. By the time those people want to be heard, they want to cross-examine, they make applications for adjournment, that case can take long. One prime example is a case involving the Sirisia MP, John Waluke. That case, all those issues started in 2009, and I don't think he was convicted before either. 2020.
Can you say that again? Which year?
2009 was the genesis of that investigation. He was convicted in 2020. How many years is that?
That's 11 years.
11 years. And now he's out on bail pending appeal. So he is allowed to vie, and this is what we are talking about. This is a person who has a cloud hanging over him, but he's running for public office.
So out of curiosity, Wakili, how much money have we recovered from corruption suspects or convicts?
Yes, again, another very good question. In the last 5 years, we have recovered in excess of 30 billion. Part of the recoveries is cash, and part of the recoveries is land, public land. One good example is the Kenya Meteorological Department land in industrial area. That one parcel was valued at 5.2 billion shillings. Yes.
When this money is recovered, just to educate us, does it go to the exchequer, or does it fund specific projects or programs in government?
You're absolutely right. The money goes back to the treasury. That is what the law provides for. But the second part of your question perhaps is the future. Okay. We may want to have this money come back to a fund that will help the law enforcement agencies or other special projects.
Okay, that sounds interesting. So my next question is from Betty Jelimo. Betty is from Nakuru County.
Okay, my question is, there is a myriad of governance challenges across the country, especially at the county government, especially with bursary funds, where you find that the bursary are allocated to students according to who you know in the offices. So what is it that has been done, or what initiative is it that has been taken to solve this problem?
George, do you think bursaries are riddled with corruption, the disbursement in the counties and constituencies?
Yeah, really, thanks a lot, Jelimo, for this question. And the first question that I would want to ask, and I'm glad that I'm speaking to quite a number of young people here. The biggest problem we have in bursary, first of all, is that we don't have a clear data on who is supposed to get this bursary. That is the first problem. The second thing is, right now, we are going to an election which is highly contested. The million-dollar question I keep asking myself, amongst the people you are going to elect from the ward level, how many of those people are passionate about education? To me, that is where the story starts. Because then, if you look at the devolved funds that are coming at the county level, we have different funds, whether it is women rep, whether it is from the governor's office, whether it is from the member of parliament. And these funds are not organized in such a way that you can really get resources that can support you. Now, where does the problem come? The problem comes on this sense. There are no very clear frameworks on how bursary is supposed to be given. There are high chances that you'll find other people who are coming from other places who not necessarily come from those particular areas who are also benefiting. We've also seen scenarios where children from prominent families are also able to acquire these bursaries. But I've never seen a report that comes out very clearly from the Auditor General's report as matters bursary has been distributed from all the funds that we have.
Okay.
But like I've said, we have to decide, because the sovereignty of the Republic of Kenya is vested in us. Just take time and look at the people we want to elect. Are they passionate about education? If these people are not passionate about education, trust me, you will never get this bursary. Because in a way, there is also competition amongst those who are going to school and those who have refused to go to school. And that is where the problem starts.
Thank you. You're watching Impact Kenya with me, Jason Nyantino. Tonight we are focusing on the war against corruption. Don't go away. welcome back to Impact Kenya with me, Jason Nyantino. Tonight, we are focusing on the war against corruption, which has become a major campaign issue as we get closer to the 9th August general election. Now, Eric, what has been your experience as Law Society of Kenya?
I think it wouldn't be far-fetched to say that we just transferred corruption from the national government and cascaded it down to the county government. I think that has largely been the experience. And not just corruption, but nepotism, favoritism, tribalism. We know in certain counties, at the beginning of the county governments, they refused to employ people who do not come from that county. And so it follows that the bad habits that were there and which we were trying to run away from found themselves in the counties. And one of those areas, I think, is with regards to disbursements of funds such as bursaries. It wouldn't be far-fetched to make an assumption that the allocation, because it is at some level discretionary, would then be given to only those that have allegiance to the person controlling the purse string.
Is it a matter that LSK has picked up? Because we see LSK at the national level. You're very feasible in the war against corruption. But what about at the counties level? I'm aware that you have chapters, you have your people at the counties level. Are they raising these matters?
Yes, we have 8 branches of the Law Society, and they've been having perhaps not a very robust engagement with the county government. It is something that my regime is looking at, and we want to try and see how we can get the Law Society to be much more interested in terms of the medium, short-term plans that the county is developing. And because for most of the time, our interventions have been with regards to the legislation that is coming out of the county assemblies.
Thank you.
But I think we need to broaden that engagement and, and then ensure that we are looking at the entire operation of the county, and in terms of compliance with the law and the aspirations that we have set for ourselves under Chapter 6
Thank
of the
you.
Constitution.
Thank you, Wakili. My next question is from Dixon Ngui. Dixon is from Kitui County.
We all know that corruption has been very chronic in our country, and you find that those people who expose corruption, they be targeted by the officials whom have been involved in the scandals. My question is, do commissions provide or protect those people who expose corruption?
Thank you, Dixon. Sheila, what has been your whistleblowers? Are they protected in law? Practically speaking, are they safe? Because we've had some of them exposing corruption.
Yes, that is one of the big concerns that we have. And also noting that it was one of the promises that the Jubilee administration had made during its campaigns in 2013, that it would enhance protection, reward for whistleblowers. That hasn't happened, because we have many cases that have been brought out. Actually, we say behind every case, corruption case, there's a whistleblower. For many of these cases, a number of them work in the public sector. We've seen a number of them face intimidation, acts of reprisal through, demotions, transfers. Some have lost their jobs. We have a case we are dealing with for the Masai Mara University, where the whistleblower of that case actually lost his job last year, and now is at home jobless because he risked life and limb to report a case of corruption. We also saw what happened to John Githongo He has been slapped with an award, a fine of, it was initially 27 million. I think the court has reduced that now to 10 million after an appeal following his exposure of the Anglo leasing case almost more than 15 years ago. So it seems like it's you expose corruption at a great personal risk, and not just to you, but also your family and your livelihood. And so we have a problem in terms of how whistleblowers are handled in this country. Rather than being handled and celebrated as patriots, you risk a lot of stigma, and rejection in society. They are not adequately protected under our law. We currently don't have comprehensive legislation on whistleblower protection. Provisions to protect whistleblowers are scattered across various laws. We have, of course, what is provided under witness protection, some aspects under access to information, the Bribery Act as well, the Public Officers Ethics Act. But we need a comprehensive legislation to ensure that they're adequately protected.
Okay.
And that's one of the things that we have been agitating for.
I would imagine, before Philip comes in, I would imagine LSK, this is a matter you need to pick up, because you're very feasible, you have a national network, there are people out there suffering. Why are we not seeing LSK's voice, Eric?
My own assessment is that the agencies that are charged with witness protection are actually doing a good job.
Mm-hmm.
There might be certain concerns about resource allocation, the identification of witnesses who are likely to face a threat, and so therefore early identification and protection measures being taken against them. But I think, to be quite honest, that we have made strides. As of any government system, there's always room for improvement, and there's been continuous engagement, especially under the NCAJ forum, to enhance that collaboration. Because it is not in every case that, even if it's a high-profile case, that the witnesses are at risk. And the risk crystallizes at different times. So I think that is where you need to have to ensure that there's closer collaboration. But I think they are doing well, but a lot more can be done to ensure that a lot of these witnesses feel safe.
Thank you. Thank you, Akil. Philip, how do you get to start investigating a case? Do you get anonymous reports? I am aware that the Commission, way before, used to have a system on your website where you go in and do an anonymous reporting. Is that still the case?
Yes. The portal for reporting anonymously is still available on our website, www.eacc.go.ke. So if you want to report something and you don't want anybody to know who you are, you go to the EACC website and there's a big sign there, anonymous reporting. You click on that and then you can put in your report. Your report will be assigned a number. That number cannot be related to the gentleman who just asked the question. But the bigger issue here is, what about the legislative framework? Why do we not have a comprehensive law to protect whistleblowers? And the fact of the matter is, we have a draft, we have a bill which has been in Parliament for 7 or 8 years, 9 years. Yes, it hasn't moved. And that would have been...
Which bill is that?
Whistleblower protection bill.
It has never passed?
Specifically to protect whistleblowers, it has never moved. And then we need to tie all these things together, especially at this time when we are going to an election year. If you have crooked people who are running for public office and they find their way in the National Assembly, do you think it is in their interest to pass legislation that supports the war against corruption?
Obviously.
Obviously not. So that is clearly a challenge. And we have many examples. And one of the most annoying ones is a case involving a former head of a public agency, one of the major authorities in this country, arrested in December, charged in January, nominated in March, elected in May. So in 6 months, he's in Parliament. do you think that person can pass an anti-corruption law?
Of course not. And in terms of our integrity test, I know, Sheila, you've been very passionate about this in the recent past, but I want George to come in. Where are we headed as a country in the war against corruption? From what I'm hearing, we are taking 3 steps forward, then we take 5 steps backward.
My thinking is very clear. Kenyans need to get annoyed. To me, that is where we must start from. And why am I saying this?
You seem very annoyed yourself. So
of course, I'm already annoyed. Do you know why I'm saying this? And without any problem with anyone, somebody lined up in 2017 with a bag of githeri, and the president recognized that person. The other one went and exposed fraud, theft in a university, and it was discovered. Now that one has lost a job. The person who is supposed to shape, who must take responsibility, has decided to award a githeri person at the expense of that who has exposed what is happening in a university.
Maybe the president had his own reasons for
But look at it
awarding
this way.
Githeri man.
Look at it this way.
Yes.
Kenyans, young people are struggling and suffering. Parents are suffering to take their kids to school. They are really working every single day hard to ensure that they are able to educate their children. But somebody is sitting pretty well, enjoying life and stealing from the universities. And we don't take that serious. In my opinion, when we get annoyed, very, very annoyed, then we will be guided by the principles that are enshrined in the Constitution of Kenya, where we will not be deviated by people who can speak well in political rallies, people who can abuse each other, but we will say enough is enough and let's fix this country. That is our responsibility as Kenyans, not politicians.
Sheila, are you as annoyed as George?
Yes, I mean, it is actually, I think, can be quite frustrating, and as George says, annoying when you have to live through the things you see in this country. And I totally agree with him. Sometimes our actions are misplaced, that instead of rewarding someone who probably intercepted and curtailed what could have been a bigger crime, that you'd rather, focus on other side shows. That really has been the case of whistleblowing. And I agree with Philip that we really need to look at the quality and credibility of leaders who are then going to go into, whether it's the 13th Parliament, the county assemblies and so on, especially those responsible in terms of legislation, but also, of course, those who are going to sit in the executive positions. Because if it's people who are already tainted, believe me, they will have no interest in terms of protecting your resources. Their aim will be to get more, So we really need to make choices, because those people who have been accused of corruption or other offenses, their main aim to go into office is not to protect your interests or pursue your interests. It's mainly to protect their own status quo and give themselves a lifeline where they can continue to serve in office without being accountable. So we really have no hope in a majority of people who have been cleared and who have issues.
Thank you, Sheila. We are taking a short break. You're watching Impact Kenya with me, Jason Nyantino. Tonight we are focusing on the war against corruption. It's a good time to join this conversation as you're watching us from home or wherever you are by answering this question. Are you satisfied with the way corruption is being tackled by government agencies? Are you satisfied with the way corruption is being tackled by government agencies? Let's get to know what you think. Engage with us using the contacts on your screen. We'll be back in a moment. Welcome back to Impact Kenya with me, Jason Nyantino. Tonight we are focusing on the war against corruption. What is the magic bullet that is going to bring down this monster that has bedeviled this country for decades? Eric, before we go back to the audience, there's this, we know that we are talking about war against corruption, but there's another war between DPP and DCI. They've come up with another war. What do you have to comment about it?
It's indeed a very regrettable situation. We are having, I think in my view, a case of misunderstanding of what the law should be. The Constitution has given the DPP the mandate to prosecute, and so therefore, the ultimate person with the constitutional responsibility in terms of who should be charged is the DPP. But the investigators work extremely close with the DPP. They investigate and they make recommendations that based on our investigations, we believe that there is enough evidence to sustain a criminal charge. The DPP then reviews the evidence and makes a decision whether to charge or not. That is the constitutional architecture, in as much as some of our laws may read otherwise in terms of the Criminal Procedure Code. But the Constitution dictates that when you are reading laws that were enacted before the promulgation of the Constitution, then those laws should be read with the necessary modifications so that it is in consonance with the Constitution.
Now, Eric, it's now 12 years since the new Constitution was promulgated. Surely the penal code has never been revised?
There's been piecemeal amendments to the penal code. I think it's long overdue for a complete overhaul, for it to reflect the current realities in the society. But I think that this is a matter which ought to have been handled differently. It's a question of interpretation, and the two gentlemen can actually sit somewhere and agree, because I don't think there is a lot of confusion in the eyes of the lawyers, both at DCI and at the DPP, in terms of who has the constitutional mandate to prefer a charge. So that is not really a question for debate.
All right.
It's in my view,
they should sit and
they
agree.
should just sit and resolve that.
Okay.
What the High Court did, the Justice Murima's decision did, was to even prescribe a format of a charge, which I think is what has brought all these issues. That if it is the DPP who has the constitutional authority to charge, then even the charge sheet, we should depart from the prior charge sheet we used to have, which bears the insignia of the police, to a charge sheet that then bears the insignia of the DPP.
All right.
So that was the High Court decision, which I think then was some sort of a departure from the practice that we were used to. Because before then, the police would prepare the charge sheet, it would come to court, the DPP would endorse before it is presented before a magistrate. So you can see that the High Court decision didn't change much other than just saying that the format of the charge sheet should now change to show that it is the DPP and not the police.
Okay.
Yes.
Sheila, what do you have to say about this?
No, it's worrying to see, our institutions which are charged to tackle crime at different levels, whether it is investigation or prosecution, go as far as taking each other to court, suing and countersuing and so on. I feel that over the last couple of years, 5 years or so, there have been a number of, a tough war is what I'd call, like every institution seems to want to claim its space, yeah, and possibly go a little maybe to someone else's space. But I believe that because we have these forums where they should be able to discuss these issues, and we should actually call them out, because I then wonder how, at this point, some of these criminal charges are then being preferred if we have this kind of standoff, and what does it then mean in terms of resolution of cases that Kenyans may have. All these are institutions that are benefiting or that are paid by taxpayers. I think you can't put taxpayers through this kind of issues.
Maybe, I know Eric has a lot of mediators. Maybe you need to give them a mediator free of charge. Don't charge them. Maybe it might give us a solution. My next question is from Brian Ochola, all the way from Homa Bay County. Brian, your question.
It is on record that Kenya loses 2 billion each day due to corruption. Can we blame corruption for the high cost of living witnessed in the country?
Thank you. What do you think, George Collins?
You know, it's very interesting that 98% of county governments in the Republic of Kenya has either gotten adverse opinion or qualified opinion. That's very interesting.
From who?
From the Auditor General's office.
Okay. That is for the record. We can take that.
Yes, that is for the record.
To the bank.
Yes.
Okay.
So what is interesting is, you know, Corona also came up with new ideas, and one of the ideas was sanitization. So depending on which political divide you are in, then you can get scot-free. But what worries me is that when you look at the Public Finance Management Act, there are systems and standards on how you should even get resources, especially after counting on the ones that you've had. But if you look at our county governments, and I stand to be corrected, none of these county governments has received less than 80B for the past 9 or 10 years or so. The question is, do we see value for money? The other question is, can we see what 80B has done in our respective counties? I want to tell you for free that part of the issues that have been raised are issues of surrendering per diems. Those are issues that are very key. Where
that is fine, but going back to his question, do you think corruption is contributing to the high cost of living?
It is contributing, and not only that, it is also planned. And that's why I'm bringing that background. That corruption in Kenya is designed. It has a logical framework. It has indicators and how it is supposed to move. And this is something that must be addressed by every single Kenyan in this country. And you can even link it with what we've just talked about DCI and the office of the DPP. Why can't these people realize that these are officers that are paid by taxpayers and they remove themselves from those offices? So if a whole head of a Republic of Kenya, because that is where the reference comes from, qualified that indeed we lose that kind of money every year. And recently, we are also told that he's actually surrendering that battle to somebody else. Then there is a problem. It's either we Kenyans, we are the ones who have a problem, or the people we put in the office are the ones who have a problem.
Okay.
And this has to be solved by us.
Thank you. I want to spread this debate a little bit. This is actually the cost of corruption. That is what Brian is talking about. And I've got some interesting revelations here. The president is the one who came out in public some years back and said, I think beginning of last year, that we lose 2 billion every day to corruption. That translates to in a year will be about 700 billion plus, okay? Now, the cost of, hear this, the cost of the Nairobi Expressway, as we know it today, is about 65 to 70 billion. So you can see what we lose to corruption in a year can give us 10 and over expressways. That is not enough. The Teacher Service Commission says there are over 300,000 teachers out there who can't be employed because of lack of funds. This money that we lose daily can actually employ all these teachers and employ all the doctors and health workers. So that is the conversation we need to have as a country. And I'm coming to you, Philip. You're in EACC. Cost of corruption. How do we deal with this issue?
I'm glad you have connected corruption with our standard of living. You know, a lot of people have this attitude that this money is somewhere else. It is being stolen by other people. It doesn't affect us. In fact, there's a very rude expression where people say, kwani ni ya mama yako? You understand what I mean? So we need to associate the effect of corruption with our own lives. Back to this issue of 2 billion per day, I think context is important. The statistics that are out there and mind you, you have to take the statistics with a pinch of salt because there is no empirical formula to measure corruption, because some forms of corruption cannot be measured accurately. But the data that is out there suggests that Kenya is losing about 700 billion per year. So when you extrapolate it backwards, that's how it comes to the 2 billion per day. Now that doesn't mean that there is somebody with a gunia of 2 billion running out of Kenya with that money. It just simply means that that is a general cost of corruption. The other statistic that might be useful is the one that is related to GDP. We are losing 25% of GDP through corruption. So if you look at Kenya's GDP, just do the arithmetic, 25% of that, and you can break it down to the number of days. Okay. But we need to connect the effect of what we are losing through corruption to our life. So for instance, if you can't get enough money for your bursary, it's because somebody ate that money. If you need to go to a private hospital, it's because somebody ate the money for a public hospital. If you have to send your kids to public schools, private schools and private universities, because somebody has taken that money. So we need to make this connection so that the next time you have an opportunity to vote leaders, you vote in leaders with integrity.
Thank you. Thank you. I've run out of time. I want to give each of you about 10 seconds to give your closing comments. I'll start with Eric.
Thank you so much. I think the responsibility to infuse hygiene in our public affairs lies with all of us. So we either fail collectively or we prosper collectively.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Sheila?
The cost of corruption, we see it every day. Every time you have to take your breakfast, you have to take your tea and bread, and then you realize how much we are paying for corruption because we can barely afford our basic commodities. So my appeal to Kenyans is that we have, as we think about the elections, let us engage leaders with integrity. And that responsibility lies squarely with citizens. You are at the last line of defense, and the future of this country is dependent on the decisions that you will make at the ballot.
Thank you. George?
It is up to us to take that mandate and ensure that Kenya moves to the next level on 9th August 2022. Thank you.
Thank you. Philip?
On the part of EACC, allow me to say that EACC has done its job. There is not a day that goes by without you seeing a report from our media platforms that somebody has been arrested, somebody has been charged, somebody has been convicted, and assets have been recovered. However, as Sheila mentioned, the last piece of this puzzle is the citizen. You have the responsibility. The responsibility of fighting corruption cannot be left to law enforcement agencies. You have to play your part. And one of the most important things you can do is on 9th of August, vote in leaders who have integrity.
Thank you, and that's where the curtains fall for this week's edition of Impact Kenya with me, Jason Nyantino. And indeed, this is our last episode in this season, the first season of this series. We come back again later after the election. And as we vote, Kenyans out there, let's maintain peace before, during, and after the August 9th. We have a country to keep. Let's maintain peace. I thank my panel and my studio audience for that wonderful discussion, and all of you at home for watching. You can still be part of this discussion by answering this question. Are you satisfied with the way corruption is being tackled by government agencies? Are you satisfied with the way corruption is being tackled by government agencies? Let's get to know what you think through the contacts on your screen. And on behalf of my production crew, it's good night and bye-bye. See you soon.